The comfort of your favorite seat is now your comfy car-selling command center, thanks to Carvana.
It doesn't get any better than this.
Your favorite seat's the best spot in the house. Make it even better by entering your license plate or VIN and getting a real offer in minutes.
There really is no place like home.
And speaking of home, Carvana will pick up your car from yours after you finalize your offer. Visit Carvana.com or download the app and sell your car from your comfy place. That's not just the sound of that first sip of Morning Joe. It's the sound of someone shopping for a car on Carvana from the comfort of home.
That's a good blend.
It's time to take it easy, like answering some easy questions to get pre-qualified for a car in minutes.
Talk about starting the morning right.
Just like customizing your terms so your car fits your budget. Visit Carvana.com or download the app to experience car shopping the way it should be. Convenient, comfortable. Ah.
Welcome to the frightful finale of the month-long spectral Spooktober spectacular. If you're feeling grim, just remember that all good things must eventually come to a dead end. For our final tale, we take you back to 1878, to a quaint Canadian village in northwestern Nova Scotia. It was here that a young girl became a town curiosity after she became the focus of a powerful paranormal presence. The girl and her family were tortured by this particularly pernicious poltergeist, which went as far as to try and set the family home ablaze by materializing lit matches from seemingly empty air. Imagine their terror after learning to communicate with this spiteful spirit, that it was not just one, but an entire host of ghosts. This case file, join the Fearists for the killer conclusion to our Spooktober series with the preternatural piece of horror history known as the Great Amherst Mystery.
Welcome to Alien Theorists Theorizing Case File 210, The Great Amherst Mystery. I'm Braden.
I'm Dan.
And I'm Andrew.
Woo! The boys are back in town.
We've always been in town.
You know what? Scrap the Amherst Mystery. DuckTales Part 2, baby. We want to take this back to Duckburg.
Life is like a hurricane
when Zell's not here.
Zell's gone, as you can see, for personal reasons. He can't be here tonight.
It's not for us to disclose.
Yeah, it's not for us to disclose.
It's not for us.
If you know, you know.
And if you don't, you don't.
And you don't, you don't. You should get on our Patreon because you probably know.
Yeah, that's true.
Anyways, you know what? I was researching this. We got to do a trigger warning for this one because there's going to be a lot of talk of cocks in this case file. A lot of cock
talk of cocks coming.
We're going to be talking cocks.
Talk of cocks coming.
Multiple cocks. A lot of cock talk coming. It is in the form of a name, specifically cocks. But
yeah, what kind of cocks do you think we're talking about?
If you're one of those people that is just hanging around and barely listening, and you just get triggered by the word cock, it's going to be thrown around. Twin cocks,
the cocks everywhere,
the cock siblings, all sorts of cocks going up all over the place. Without, it's an interesting case file for sure. I had never heard of it before, and a Canadian one at that too.
Yes, from Nova Scotia.
Yeah, I came across this one researching, and it is definitely suitable for our spooktacular finale, I think. This one is it's weird that this is such not as well known as some other. It is a poltergeist case. It is less well known than some other cases, but this one is definitely one of the ones that is perhaps more dramatic. I think
it's not the most well-known Geist. It's not the most popular of the Geists, is what you're saying.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Okay.
It definitely has one of the more detailed accounts, given that it is pretty much single-handedly recorded by one person, and they spent a long time with observing the events that occurred around this paranormal occurrence. So this pretty much begins in 1878 in a cozy, well-kept cottage.
So recent.
Yeah, totally recent. in a small, what was then a small, quaint Victorian village. And this is perhaps, some people will point to this, people who are in the know, as probably Canada's most famous poltergeist, even though nobody really knows about it.
Yeah.
So it involves and revolves around a 14-year-old girl named Esther Cox.
There it is. So begins.
Who at the time lived with her eldest sister, Olive. Olive's hardworking husband, Daniel. Teed.
That's not Popeye?
No.
Oh, that's fucking stupid.
Popeye wasn't there yet.
He's married to Olive Oil, isn't he?
Daniel owned the college that they lived in, and there was quite a bit more. There's a number of people in this house who were actually all witnesses to the activities that occurred within the next few months. So you had Olive and Dan's two young boys, Willie and George, both 5 and 1 respectively. And then you had Dan's brother, John. And then you had Esther and Olive's brother, William. And then the Cox siblings' 22-year-old sister, Jane. So now this all begins in late summer. So September 4th, 1878. Esther and Jane traditionally had shared a bed and a bedroom. And when they were settling down for the night, Jane felt something that she felt could have been a mouse crawling around inside the mattress.
Mm.
Now, I am not...
God, I would have hated living in the 1800s.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with a mouse crawling around in my mattress. I don't know what that feels like. I assume it's pretty gross. Like, man, fucking 1870s. Come on. But you have so they thought something was crawling around in their mattress. So Esther jumps out of bed, screaming as you would, exclaiming that there's a mouse or something under the bedclothes, under the sheets, and that lay over the mattress.
Or like under the sheets, like not in the bed, but under the sheets.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fucking awful.
Yeah.
So Jane was probably one of the more practical of the sisters. So Jane was kind of like, it's no big deal. Like,
hold on. So bedclothes means bed sheets.
Yeah, in this
that makes the next poltergeist situation talk about way less exciting. I totally have a way different. Oh, that fucking blows.
To be fair, I was also confused. I was very confused.
Yeah, it does throw you for a loop at first. Yeah, when you're reading about this account, the bedclothes
that come flying off.
Bedclothes are like sheets, like your fitted. What would now probably be like your fitted sheet, like the sheets that you put on top of that, your comforter.
So literally, your bed's clothes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Not your PJs, not the clothes you wear to bed.
No.
Yeah. You thought we had some lazy laundry folders here who just left. They're just like, oh fuck it, I'll put it away tomorrow. I'm not hanging it. Just stack it on the bed.
So now, this later that night, they heard a rustling, following this encounter with a mouse or something inside their mattress, and they ended up like getting up out of bed and kind of narrowing down their search for the sound. They were trying to locate the source of the sound, and what they decided it was coming from this cardboard box that was filled with just pieces of patchwork. So stuff that probably they had, but stuff for patches and loose fabric and things like this that they kept underneath the bed. So they dragged this box out into the middle of the room, thinking that they would, catch the mouse or at least get it out of their room or whatever. But
did they think was the mouse? They thought the mouse was perhaps in the box,
right?
Okay,
because they heard this something rustling around, and it didn't sound like it was in the mattress. It sounded like it was inside this box that was on the ground or near the bed. And
What's in the box? What's in the box?
And nobody really knew until they pulled it out. And when they put it out in the middle of the floor, this box that they reported was that it suddenly leapt up off the floor under its own power and just popped up into the ground like a foot off the ground, and then landed on its side, and then it dumped out all its contents. And then there was just the fabric that was inside there. No mouse, no nothing. This thing just hop up.
Fucking shot straight in the air. I was going to say that must have freaked the shit out of the mouse.
So there was nothing underneath the bed sheets. It was just this box moving around under the bed.
Well, they heard the sound was coming from the box, this rustling sound or whatever. They were figuring out something that they figured was supposed to be the mouse. So this box, they said, was some sound was emanating from it, like something was rustling around inside of the box. And so when they took it out, thinking that was going to be there, and it just triple pop-o-matic, like popped up off the floor.
That's your first mistake. That's where you pull it out from under the bed, and then you go straight up to the window and just discus that shit right out the window. Not worth it. Don't take a chance to open it up.
Yeah, see a ghost.
We're not getting paranormally activated tonight. Buy a box.
So, understandably perturbed by this box leaping up off the floor under, nobody there, no gust of wind, no nothing pushing that thing off the ground. The lady screamed for Daniel, the elder, to come into for them to help them or something. Like they didn't know what to do. So they screamed out for Daniel to come in. So Daniel came in and looked at this thing, but they couldn't find this mouse. And he, pretty much kind of wrote it off as a nightmare or, hysterical ravings. Like you both had a nightmare.
He's like, you and your weak woman hearts.
So it was 1870. So that could have been an appropriate response. And, pretty much just said, you're both just freaking out. She had a nightmare. You're just feeding into it, and told them, go back to bed and whatever.
And it's not like they're like little kids here either. Like they're older.
No, they're teenage. So yeah, Jane is 22 and
Right?
and Esther is 14.
Yeah, that's fucking midlife crisis era.
In those days, they only had maybe 12 more years to live in 1800s, right? They were like,
let's be honest.
Right, 22, unwed with no kids. What's her problem, right?
It's true.
1800, like, goddamn. I mean, some of the neighbors had already had 6-7 kids, right? Already lost a husband to the sea.
How old's Olive? I don't think she's much older than Jane.
Olive I don't have her age right in front of me, but
I don't think she's much older.
So now they both went to bed. The rest of the night kind of passed without any trouble. And then the next night at about 8:30, Esther began complaining about feeling feverish, feeling hot. And then Mrs. Teed, Olive, told her and Jenny, or no, actually Jenny and Mrs. Teed told Esther to go to bed. They're like, you okay? Maybe you're feeling sick. Maybe you've caught cold or something. Go ahead and, go to bed. So she takes the advice, heads up to bed. So around 10 o'clock, Jenny also retired. So, again, they both share a room. So Jenny goes back, goes to the bed. And
I like your use of the term retired, because you're like, well, this is the term that was used.
It's 1800.
Yeah.
I'm surprised, like somebody, this lady, she tells you she's not feeling well and she's like, you should probably go to bed. Like, I'm surprised it's not more of a to-do, like given the fucking emotional, gathered the family around, like she's not feeling well, she's going to bed. She's got a 50% chance of not making it through the night. She might have a cold. She might have TB. We don't know.
She might have diphtheria. Who knows?
Yeah, she might be fucking dying
Could
here.
have been a whole bunch of things.
We don't know. So
So Jenny goes to bed, accompanied, with Esther, and they had probably been in bed for about 15 minutes when Esther jumps out of bed into the center of the room and starts just pretty much like freaking out, like screaming. And then Jenny gets out of bed as well, thinking something's wrong with Esther. Something's happened to her. And when she finally manages to get the lamp lit, she can see Esther's appearance is something that she's never really seen before. So
she looks like that
Esther,
chick out of Willy Wonka and the Charlie.
Oh my God, you son of a bitch. Yeah, Violet Beauregard.
Yeah.
Fucking stole my joke, you son of a bitch.
That's exactly that's what I thought. She was giving me some real Violet Beauregard vibes. Hey, too slow.
I was going to say fucking Veruca Salt, and I was like, hey, you know what? I better look that up so I don't fuck it up so Dan doesn't embarrass me on this fucking case file. So I Googled it. Yeah, that's why I know it's Violet Beauregard.
So Esther was described as like standing there with her, at the time, short hair, pretty much just standing on end, and like her face is just completely blood red crimson, and her eyes looking like they're just about to like bug out of her sockets. And so she had managed to get her hands on the back of a chair to kind of, it seemed to almost help her stand. And she had it held so tightly that her fingernails were sinking into the wood.
And if you want an accurate like picture in your head, think of Violet Beauregard in Total Recall, and her trip to Mars has gone terribly wrong and she's cracked her mask. That's what I pictured. I think that'd be an accurate description.
And Esther is aware of this going on, and Esther is just like, she's quoted as saying, "I am swelling up and I shall surely burst. I know I shall." Right,
yeah.
Those are her words.
She may have said that, or she just may have been like, yeah.
Again, so Daniel is summoned into the room, and by the screams and the alarm, the screams of alarm from the two women.
Does he tell him to go back to bed?
And he looks at her, and he can see
Shut
visibly
the fuck up.
these things.
Try to sleep. Daniel's gonna have to shake a bitch. All right.
Daniel can plainly see that she is swelling up, and so he points it out to Olive as well. Says, "Just look at her. Even her hands are swollen. Lay your hand on her. She's as hot as fire." So she has this extreme fever going on, where she's also. This is also
he pronounced her dead. She's dead.
So you have this young lady. Her entire body is now swollen. She's screaming in pain and grinding her teeth as epileptic is a description. Like it seems like she's having an epileptic fit, which is known around those times. And then you get this loud bang, like one peal of thunder, like a crack of thunder is what they described it as. And it is something like that shakes the entire house.
Yeah, like startles everyone to a standstill. Like everyone stops, takes notice. Like it sounds like it hit the house.
And everyone kind of stopped. And so it was so disturbing and so loud that Olive actually thought something like a bolt of lightning had struck the house, and so she was extremely concerned for her children, like the two young boys. So she ran to their room to actually go check on them. That's how loud this thing was, and how it shook the house, and how it made her concerned enough to go check on these kids. And then, knowing that she goes and checks on them, those are okay. But even after that, they heard 3 more of these house shaking bangs.
What I'd seen it described as read is like someone sitting on your roof who wants to get through your roof, who's just smashing your shingles with a sledgehammer. Jesus. Like that was the impact to them inside. Like it felt like a force was trying to break in through the roof.
So after they hear these 3 more huge explosions in the house, these huge thunderous booms, Esther seemed to just revert back to her normal appearance, and then seemed to just fall back asleep. like just pass out.
Now, before we move on, like, is there anything that we know of that can cause that kind of like some weird epileptic fit?
Well,
like flash fever and swelling, other than eating the forbidden, like not listening to Willy Wonka.
Oompa Doompa. Well, Oompa Loompas didn't come in and start singing, so we can rule that out.
Yeah.
There was no warning song.
Yeah.
It's funny that you mentioned that because I looked into it.
Knew you would.
Because I was very curious.
Hey, the next time I steal your joke, can you just, and you have it written down, can you just rip your paper and not even say anything? That way I know.
Just get upset. That'd be funny.
Yeah.
That was pretty close. But then the rest of my shit. Then I wouldn't be able to drop this factoid on your bitch ass.
Yeah.
So there's a little something that we like to call bull neck, which is a symptom of diphtheria.
Wait, that's what I have when I shave.
Well, that's just what you have permanently.
Yeah.
But so a lot of times with people have diphtheria, their lymph nodes can get super swollen, which presents what we call as bull neck. Almost kind of looks like a, what do you call those frogs that fill up their neck?
Bullfrog?
Bullfrog. Exactly. There you go.
Most frogs kind of do it.
I thought there were certain frogs that do it, or all frogs. Either way, so it usually it's usually a symptom of laryngeal diphtheria, but it can happen in other types of diphtheria as well. And then you also, like with diphtheria, you get raging fevers, usually a slow onset, but when they spike, they can be really bad, hot to the touch. As far as these, like when you say the epileptic fit, so we're going to go ahead and assume you're talking about some type of like most likely a grand mal seizure or with some trismus, because you were talking about like tightening of the jaw.
But she's still talking though. That was what struck me as weird. I'm like,
depending on how long the fit was for, when you come out of it, she could have been postictal, which would kind of account for like bizarre behavior following. But like anybody, if you're, like it's usually only common in children to have a febrile seizure, right? She's 14, but you can still have, with a bad enough fever, you can still have a seizure. So, but that sounds a lot to me like diphtheria.
And does diphtheria cause crashing on your roof?
Yeah.
No. What time of year is this?
But just into summer.
So it's not Santa Claus is what you're saying.
No. It's way too early.
It's too early for Santa.
Does it cause boxes?
Maybe it was the Belschnickel.
To jump. Maybe it was the Grossman.
Don't talk about that guy.
So after this episode, things kind of return to normal for the next 4 nights. So you have Esther going around her normally house duties. She usually helps Olive with the housework. That's her normal kind of routine. And just, going around town doing her usual routine. Now, 4 nights later, Esther has a similar attack. She has almost the same thing. But this time you have the bedclothes, the sheets and the blanket and everything that are on the bed. These just fly from the bed.
See, this is what I'm talking about. I thought both these chicks just instantly clothes flew off their bodies.
No.
I was like, oh, this is good.
And listen, you got to remember to, I don't want to put, I'm not 100% sure. I'm not.
In the remake of this story, the Great Bonehurst fucking mystery.
Yeah.
The Pinot version, that's what happens. The clothes come flying off.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
They're bed
it's
clothes.
actually her stepsister, not her real sister too. And it's just,
and she was stuck under the bed trying to get that box.
Is that a mouse in the bed?
Anyways, what I was going to say is that, I'm not a big, I don't know, you might think that I'm an expert on sheets and bedclothes. I'm not. But I don't think
you're talking to a guy here that hasn't changed his bed sheets in fucking 6 years.
Yeah. I don't think they had fitted sheets in 1800. I'm going to go ahead and say that. I'm going to go out on a limb. Right? They were all loose sheets. So for me, I'm like, okay, well then listen, I'm still impressed that a poltergeist is throwing bed sheets off. But if those suckers aren't fitted, I guarantee you, that's why we don't see as much poltergeist activity nowadays with your bedclothes.
Why didn't you think it was fitted sheets back then? They got fucking elastic fucking
There's no way.
There's no way they had.
There's no way.
How like you tell them they're able to fucking tailor clothes, no problem. You don't think they're able to fucking taper the sheets down?
No.
And have a stretchy material?
No, I don't think they did.
Let's
hold on.
Hey, look it up, dickhead. You showed us your fucking search bar.
Hold on.
But when was the fitted sheet invented?
Ready for this?
Yeah, let's go.
When was the fitted sheet? Boom!
No, I call bullshit on that. That's dumb. That doesn't make sense.
You asked me to look it up.
There's no way one day some guy in 1959 was like, Eureka. Are you sick of fucking poltergeists blowing your sheets off?
Yeah.
I know how to fix it.
Hey,
there's no fucking way.
My friend, the proof is in the pudding.
No, I don't believe it.
Right?
I want fact check. Fake news. Where's the source?
I don't think they had back then you just had regular sheets. Like I don't even think they do it back then. How would you even fold a fitted sheet? Like how do
you fold a fitted sheet now, Dan?
You don't. Right. You bunch it up in a ball.
They wouldn't
and throw it in the closet.
back then, we don't even know how to fold one now. And so how would they know to fold one back then?
I don't think they did.
Anyways, this fucking poltergeist was short sheeting this bed like hardcore, like whipping these things off, into the corner of the room. And so at this point, Daniel's like, fuck, like shit's getting real. We need to get somebody in here to look at fucking Esther because Esther's also, she's back to, having a fever, having a fit, whatever's happening to her. We need to get a doctor. So this is when they bring in Dr. Carrot. Or
He doesn't sound like a real doctor to me.
He was a real doctor and he was well respected in the community. He was known as a very honest man, very jovial man. Yeah. And he's very well known around town and everybody kind of respected him and took his word on most things. So he was known as being he's a doctor, so he's a man of science. Yeah. So they bring him in. He does his doctor thing. He checks her pulse, looks at her tongue. And he told the family that she just seemed to
She's got to be leeched. We got to leech her. It's the only way to fix this.
I mean,
maybe
we're
lobotomy.
We're late 1800s. I don't know. Like leeches is not probably the
leech her. Let's bleed her a bit. We'll burn her. Yeah. And if all else fails, we'll hang her. She's a witch. I can fix this.
He came to the conclusion, after doing his short physical, that she was suffering from some type of nervous excitement and perhaps had received some tremendous shock and was just like it was just taking a toll on her, mentally. Now, as soon as he pretty much says this, the pillow that is underneath Esther's head, he's sitting beside the bed at this point with the rest of the family in the room. The pillow that's underneath her bed comes out from under her head. And then except for one corner pretty much. And everybody's watching this bed as if it's being pulled by some type of invisible power. And then it seems to fill itself with air, like something's just fluffing it and then goes right back under her head.
And the best part about this is this part of the story is actually logged because the doctor signed after David's. Where
affidavits.
Sorry, what was that?
If it's not on an affidavit, it didn't happen.
Yeah. Okay.
If he signed, he was like, yeah, I saw a move. And he just seemed like he didn't seem that shook by it. He was just like, yeah, I saw a move. I don't know what to say. Which is surprising because everyone else's accounts are like, this is crazy. We're all there and this thing's fucking moving.
Think about what this guy has been subjected to in his career. In the 1800s, being a doctor.
Yeah. He's like, I've seen it all.
Dude, I couldn't imagine hacking off limbs and shit on a regular basis. No, thank you.
So,
with the fucking, look at the schooling this guy's got too.
This
guy's probably read 2 books. He's a doctor. Hey, he's a barber. He's a doctor. Same shit. Come on, call him.
So Daniel's brother, John, is also present at the bedside at that moment. And he pretty much puts forth the resolution. He becomes resolute and he says, if that pillow comes out a second time, I'm going to grab it. Like he makes that vocal that he's going to grab this thing. So it does. Is no sooner than he says that if it comes out, I will grab it. It seems to come out again, doing the almost exact same the same motion that it did before. And so John worked as a farmhand, like a seasonal farmhand. So the guy is pretty, like, he's not a weak dude. Like, he's described as being, fairly fit and having that farm strength, that farm boy strength. And so when that pillow comes out, he grabs it with both hands and tries to hold it out to prevent it from going back under Esther's head. And he can't hold it. It is pulling so hard that he has to struggle to hold the pillow. And eventually it like comes out of his grasp. He can't hold it anymore and just goes right back underneath Esther's head. That's
like, I just pictured him like, getting 2 feet up on the edge of the bed, like heaving this thing and just like nothing. And
it's just not moving.
Why didn't anyone help him? This room full of people. Like, come on.
Yeah, it's a paranormally activated pillow.
I'm not going to touch it.
What I imagine there is they're watching John struggle, and the Dr. Karras just looking at him, and he's like, come on. Just grab the, it's a pillow. Grab the pillow.
Man up, John. Come on.
John, it's a pillow. Grab the pillow. John, pull the pillow. John, pull it. And he's just struggling the whole time. Can't get it. It's terrifying though. Like, if you were in this room, I would be frozen. I wouldn't even be going after the pillow. I'd just be
if
shock.
You think that's terrifying, this is where shit really gets real. And that, so
not real at the most from you, Dan.
This gets more, it gets realer than real, because at this point, again, the bedclothes fly off the bed. And before they're even, like, people in the room are able to retrieve the bedclothes and, kind of put them back on the bed over Esther, they hear the sound of what seems to be some type of metallic instrument. And it sounds like it's scratching something on the walls. And when they look to one of the walls in the room, the far wall in the room, they just see written in this like uneven, scratchy handwriting, but, fairly legible. Esther Cox, you are mine to kill.
Oh, that give me shivers. Oh. And this is something that every single person in that room attests to. And that's why there's such good documentation, because even the doctor's like, I don't know what to say. That's what it said.
So
it's terrifying.
Yeah, this is the beginning of something, and this is just the beginning. This is just the beginning of the whole entire thing. But we might want to take a break before we get even deeper into the darkness for this paranormal poltergeist phenomenon.
Yeah. We're going to take a quick beer break. We'll be right back.
Man, that sunset is gorgeous.
Grill, patio, sunset. Hard to get better than that. Unless you're browsing Carvana's inventory while you soak it all in.
Oh, burger time.
So sit back, get comfortable. Carvana's got thousands of cars under $20,000 just waiting for you.
I could stay here forever.
Carvana, where car buying meets comfort, meets convenience. Download the app or visit Carvana.com today.
Man, that sunset is gorgeous.
Grill, patio, sunset. Hard to get better than that. Unless you're browsing Carvana's inventory while you soak it all in.
Oh, burger time.
So sit back, get comfortable. Carvana's got thousands of cars under $20,000 just waiting for you.
I could stay here forever.
Carvana, where car buying meets comfort, meets convenience. Download the app or visit Carvana.com today.
We're back, baby.
We're back. And now back to the Great Amherst Mystery.
Yeah. I had that written down. You stole that from me.
Yeah, bullshit. You're not even capable of that. You're not fat enough yet, pal.
So you have everybody legitimately pretty much terrified at this point that there is some type of dark force which seems to have the intention of killing Esther Cox after physically carving its intention into the wood.
Yeah, I don't know how they pieced that together.
Made its intentions clear at this point. It wasn't just like, I'm here to short shoot your bed. I'm here to fucking murder you.
Yeah.
Apparently. And
yeah, but it's worse than that. It's not like, I'm going to kill you. It's, you were mine to kill. Like it's like he
yeah.
owns her. You know what I mean? Like it's bizarre.
Yeah,
man.
it's
some stalker weirdo
it's weird,
shit.
possessive shit for sure.
Scary, man.
So the knockings that we talked about before, the knockings and the poundings on the walls and throughout the house, like those actually continued, not like throughout the night and then throughout the day. And then, later that evening, like after that night where they saw the writing on the wall, literally, Dr. Carrot came back the next evening and he came back with some sedatives essentially. And so, he gave the sedatives to Esther, administered these sedatives, one of them pretty much being morphine, and like knocked her the fuck out. And
bro, this is the 1800s, so you're getting the good shit.
Yeah.
It's pure. Yeah, we'll knock her down with some morphine, and then when we've got to wake her up, we'll just give her some cocaine.
Yeah.
A little THC, like it's fine.
And he's like,
rub it there on her teeth, like
we're pretty sure it's a demon. And Esther, we want you to fight it in the dream realm. So go to sleep.
It's the only way to face fear. So while they're doing this, like before they're doing that, apparently the knockings seem to grow in volume, seem to increase in volume and become more rapid and frequent than they had the previous night. And then this is where you got the comparison that Braden mentioned earlier, and this was attested to by Dr. Carrot, where he compared the sound to somebody slamming on the roof with a sledgehammer, like trying to break through the shingles. That's what it sounded like.
Done. Like fast repetition.
So with his previous, with all the happenings going on, Dr. Carrot has to reevaluate his theory. And so his next theory about what has happened is he puts forth the idea that perhaps Esther has received some type of shock to her nerves, which has essentially made her an electric battery, is what he kind of compares her to. And that these knocks and these, electricity back then was like magic. Is still kind of like.
What does he think? It's some sort of powder shit going on here?
Well, I mean, electricity was the big thing back then now. And so, I think people were kind of being like, you kind of bring all that stuff into medicine, into science. So electricity, electricity's everywhere, apparently, according to some people. So they're just kind of like, well, perhaps now we're learning more about what electricity can do and our bodies produce it. So it affects our bodies in such a way. So Dr. Carrot applies that and says that he kind of reasons out that perhaps that since Esther is producing this electrical field of some type, that perhaps the sounds that they're hearing, these bangs, are just minute peals of thunder.
Oh, it's great. Like she's the lightning.
I mean, they didn't completely understand like how electricity worked and how all of that stuff kind of interacted.
No,
so, that was his best idea.
Dan, I don't know a lot of things, but I understand that they did not understand electricity. I got that from this little exchange with Dr. Carrots.
So between this time and December, pretty much, so from September to December, within a few months, like the house essentially becomes famous. Like the household becomes famous. You have visitors coming in and to hear these sounds.
We can't pass up on fucking Dr. Carrot's follow-up visit the next day.
Oh,
that might be the most Canadian of all poltergeists on the planet. When he shows up, he swears after he sedates her, he's like, I'll be back tomorrow to check on her. He shows up in the morning, and then he shows up and he sees Esther's back to normal. Everything's good. Nothing bizarre happening, and he's shocked. And then Esther goes down into the cellar to go get some shit for breakfast. And then she comes running up and she's like, there's something down there. It threw a wooden board at me. Like, it's not safe. Whatever's in this house is down there right now. And so Dr. Carrots is like, you're fucking crazy. It's electricity. I'm going to go down there and sort this shit out. Goes down in the cellar. There's nothing there. So he comes back up and says, yeah, you're fucking crazy. So then Esther's like, well, I want to come down there with you. So they go down there together, and then they start getting ambushed by fucking rogue potatoes that come flying over their shoulders.
Yeah.
And I just picture just like that's like you think about spooky hauntings, you know, that's got to be the most polite poltergeist ever. Be like, hey, hosers, get out of here. Have a fucking potato. How you like those hot potatoes, pal? Why don't you kick rocks?
That's pretty serious, man. This thing's put a dent in your skull.
Hey, and now everyone knows why Zell's not on the podcast today. Because all the potato talk.
Yeah.
He took one look at the notes and he's like, I can't come on for this.
So now in December, Esther ends up actually falling ill with diphtheria.
There's nothing to be afraid of, Esther. It's got to be the magnetism attracting the potatoes.
No, he shit his pants. He was out of there, man.
Yeah, they.
But how do you go? How do you go from being like your mind to kill and then just like start hucking some potatoes?
Hucking potatoes. I mean, that wasn't the only thing. There were other occurrences like throughout the for the next couple months. So you had enough to actually intrigue enough people to come into it. It became kind of a tourist attraction. People coming in to visit the household and witness the sounds and the events that were surrounding Esther that seemed to revolve around her, this power, which they pretty much started referring to it as the power.
She's got the power.
These things that are happening. So in December of 1878, Esther falls ill with diphtheria and the sounds seem to stop. After she recovers from this illness, she ended up going to Sackville, New Brunswick to visit her other married sister, Mrs. John Snowden, and stayed at her house for about 2 weeks. And the power didn't seem to follow her at this point. Didn't seem to come with her.
There's no potatoes flying at the Snowden house.
No potatoes flying. None of that stuff.
Scary fucking shit written in the walls.
Yeah.
Now the thing is, so this is strange. You would expect something like a power. I mean, when we talk about these things like a haunting or a poltergeist, you know, they seem to be, of course, something that is written on the wall already to become attached to Esther, and go with her, perhaps, or maybe now it's attached to the house, so you don't really know what's going on. Is it attached to Esther? Is it attached to the house? What's going on? Now, when Esther ends up returning to Daniel's cottage, Esther said something strange to Jenny, where Jenny reported that Esther seemed to believe that she could hear a voice informing her that the house would be burnt down by a ghost. And immediately following this, and then within the next couple days or so, lighted matches seem to start falling out of the air, like at such frequency that at one point, just out of thin air, like you'd have a lit match and then it would fall from the ceiling somewhere. They couldn't identify exactly where, but they would have these things. And it's at one instance, you had 8 or 10 falling within the same amount of minutes. So you had like one falling every minute. And after this started happening,
and this, like and sorry, Dan, to interrupt. This isn't like Esther being like, I saw all these matches. This is like everyone there being like, we had to put out these matches that were falling and potentially going to burn our house. They were just falling from everywhere. We have no idea why or for what reason. This isn't just one person. They had to
prevent a number of times. I mean, back then, fucking your house is a goddamn death trap. Like it's gonna fucking everything's a fire hazard. Every house is a fucking fire hazard. Like,
zero fire suppression techniques whatsoever. So there's nothing built into those places.
Everything's wired.
Every time a match would fall, somebody had to go find it and then figure out that their biggest concern actually was that they would find like one of these matches that this would materialize as they had been somewhere that they couldn't get to it in time, like, you know, inside a wall or somewhere in the attic or somewhere that they didn't see it until it was too late, because they had up until then they had been fighting these fires and just like putting them out as they popped up. And fortunately, that none of them had been serious enough to actually burn the house down, but enough of them had been worrisome enough to be like, if one of these matches like got somewhere in the house that we couldn't get to it, it will burn this house down.
Yeah. Why? I'd be concerned going to bed. You're like, what if these start falling while we're all asleep?
Now, the family begins to kind of for lack of a better word, they start to understand this ghost. They start to understand the spirit or the phenomenon that's going around, following around Esther. And the family actually discovers that they are able to converse with the spirit at some point. Like they can actually, they're all sitting around a table at one point, and they kind of ask the ghost, like, they ask them a question, and then they realize that these spirits seem to be answering with knocks. So they figured out a way of communication with these spirits, and they figured out that it would knock once for a negative answer, for no, and then it would knock 3 times if the answer was the affirmative, a yes, and then it would give 2 knocks if it was in doubt about a reply.
Yeah. Old knock, or maybe.
Yeah, interrogative knock, like knock. The question mark on that knock.
Yeah.
And so up until this point, Esther has not seen this ghost. Nobody has seen these ghosts. They've only heard the sounds, and they've seen the manifestations of the power through kind of the physical occurrences of, hucking potatoes, kinetic examples of the ghost. Like they've only seen these things. But one night, Esther and the entire family were sitting together in the parlor. The ghost became visible to Esther. And this is the first time that she saw what this ghost looked like. And at this point, like, she just pretty much was just locked up in fear, like from her head to her toes, completely frozen with fear, and just like taking over her entire body in such a way. It affected her in such a way that Daniel was at this point. For the next, it's been 2 months that she's been having to deal with this.
And honestly,
the next couple of weeks just seems to be getting worse.
You can't blame her in this situation too. Like, she's had all this shit happen. She's been swelling up like a,
Violet Beauregard.
Yeah. Looking like she's about to explode. There's shit's been carving on the wall that you're mine to kill.
People are tossing potatoes,
tossing taters at her, and now she sees like a physical representation of this ghost. I could only imagine that, like, this is like, you're like, this is the thing that's going to kill me. Like, you just be, I totally understand that she would be frozen in fear and just like absolutely rattled after everything she's been through for the last couple months. Like, all of a sudden now you're seeing this ghost. In my head, in my mind, if this was me, I'd be like, oh great, this thing's now getting enough power that it can manifest itself. Well, I'm dead. Like, this is never going to stop. That I'd be like, this is only getting worse at this point. Like, I totally understood that she was rattled.
And yeah. And that might have been what Daniel was thinking when he told her at this point. He's like, we need to put you somewhere else. We're not, he looked her dead in the eye, as is reported, that he told her, like, we're not turning you away. We're not turning you out. Like, but we need to put you somewhere else. And
I don't want my house to get burnt down. So you got to go.
Also, that
we're running out of potatoes.
That might have been running through his head as well. So the family ended up getting in contact with a man named John White, a local man, who had always kind of taken a deep interest in the power that Esther seemed to be displaying. And so after discussing, after getting contact with him and talking to him, he discussed it with his wife, and, they took pity on Esther and took her in for the time. So they said that we'll take her, and we'll take her in, and we'll take care of her. And by all accounts, the Whites were extremely gracious hosts. They took her in and treated her just like one of the family. She pretty much lived they didn't treat her special or anything. That she helped, John White's wife, Mrs. White, around the house and stuff like this.
And it's a pretty close knit village, Amherst. Like there's, or is she in New Brunswick now at this point?
No, she's back in Amherst.
Yeah. So this is a pretty close knit village. Like, there's not a lot of people there. So it's tight knit. So this isn't surprising when I first read it, and I was like, oh, just someone else would just take it. It's like, it's a small community. Like, everyone would know each other. And
they had taken some interest in it, and they'd been like, feeling bad for her. And so they felt like maybe just trying to help out or something like that. And they did. So she went to go stay with them. And then so we're approaching January of 1879. So the next year. And Esther had been at the White's residence for 2 weeks and there hadn't been anything. There hadn't been any signs of the poltergeist tormentor that had been harassing her or any of the occurrences that anything that had happened back at the Teed residence. But at the end of the 4th week, these events seem to return. And the very first thing seems, when you think about it, like the first occurrence seems very innocuous. It's just like, it's almost like impish, where she said that she was helping scrub the floors or some of the surfaces at the White's house. And her scrub brush disappeared.
Convenient.
Just
I don't want to do the dishes. I know I can't do the dishes.
But she couldn't find the scrub brush. And then, but apparently, a short time later, after she had searched everywhere looking for it, it just materialized out of thin air somewhere above her head and almost conked her on the head, is what is reported happening. It just fell out of the air.
Seemingly
from the area of the ceiling. Like, it's not like it was just like somebody threw it at her. It's like it fell straight down.
And I imagine these are like pretty heavy duty compared to like our little plastic ones we have now. I bet they're like a nice wooden handle on them.
Oh yeah.
Like, I bet they got some girth to them.
Built to last.
Pretty solid. Some weight to it. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So by the end of the 6th week, they're back to full blown pyromaniac ghost. Like the ghost starts
geisty.
The ghost starts starting fires again, apparently around the White homestead. And then this is probably the most violent display of the ghost. Now, we're not, like Andrew said, perhaps, when it wrote, carved into the wood, "You are mine to kill," it doesn't necessarily express a murderous intent, like 100%, I'm going to kill you. Okay, maybe it expresses some type of ownership. But when she's at the White's residence, a very serious event happens. So Frederick White, the son of Mr. White, was outside with like a clasp knife, like a little carving knife of some type. And then he was whittling something. And then while he's doing this, Esther comes out and they said that the knife flew from his hand into Esther's back.
Like sunk,
stabbing her with it, sunk in there. And while, after it goes, in total surprise, Frederick is still thinking about, okay, whatever. But they,
he comes waddling over. Ugh. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Pulls the knife.
Shouldn't have had up all that popcorn.
Yeah. Pulls the knife out of her back. Cleans it.
Right.
Sorry.
It's like one of those, it's a
that.
small clasp knife. So you're thinking like a little pocket, like a little, single flip out knife.
Yeah.
Like one of those. And they say that he pulled the knife out, wiped it off, closed it, put it back in his pocket, and then it immediately flew from his pocket back into the same wound.
Oh, Jesus.
In Esther's back.
Where do we know where the wound was on her back?
They weren't specific about where it got, like probably somewhere around her shoulders or something, probably, I would think.
We actually have like no idea. There's nothing. It just says her back, but on all accounts, when I first read this and it was like, and then he pulled it out and went right back in, I was like, are we sure this kid didn't stab her? But then when all accounts are that this blade flew into the exact same stab hole a second time, I'm like,
yeah.
All right, that's fucking weird.
I mean, that's probably the best case scenario, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When Frederick
Using
pulled
the
it out
same
the
hole,
second
like-
time, he thought, he was pretty forward thinking, but he took the knife and he had to lock it into like a cash cabinet. Like he locked it in there, pulled the key out, and then was like, it just left it in there after that, reportedly.
The poor Esther shanked.
She's hard at this time. She's
Yeah.
probably just like, yeah, it is what it is.
She is a hard woman.
Yeah, right.
So now you make it to January, you get into spring of 1879, and Esther is kind of the strange thing is that perhaps due to some of somewhat due to her experiences and this display of power that's happening, Esther has become quite in demand. It looks like, or it seems like her social life is kind of taken off. So she gets invited to a lot of places. So Esther ends up
show us your stab wound.
Esther ends up traveling to St. John, New Brunswick at the invitation of a certain unnamed military officer at the time. And it is during her stay with him that Esther is visited with a quote party of scientifically minded gentlemen who end up developing a new method of which to communicate with Esther's poltergeist. And so what they would do is essentially, like, this is because the Ouija board hadn't been invented yet. This is the proto Ouija board. They would, and also you could do this probably if you don't have a Ouija board present. If you don't have a Ouija board, you could probably actually try this at home. So what they would do is they would ask the entity a question, and then they would recite the alphabet and wait for the thing to knock at the appropriate letter. And by using this method, the poltergeist was able to be identified. I was able to give them a name, and that name was Bob Nickel. And not only did they get Bob Nickel name, this seemed to be almost the primary ghost, but they actually found out that there were multiple ghosts that identified themselves as these men. So you had not only Bob Nickel, but you had a ghost who identified themselves as Maggie Fisher. You had another one who was Bobby Fisher. Another one who was Peter Cox, who claimed to be an actual relative.
I don't know. I don't know. Bobby Fisher.
You had Peter Cox identify himself and claimed to actually be a relative of Esther's who died 40 years prior. You had three more presences, and that would be Mary Fisher, who said that she was Maggie's sister, one of the other ghosts. And then you had Jane Nickel and Eliza McNeil.
Now this makes sense to me that they would identify a numerous ghosts, because some of the things that happened to Esther seem on different, like wildly different levels, right? Like some very violent, the scratching, the stabbing, right? Others, a bouncing a box, taking off some covers. Others, some chucking some potatoes. Like it seems like such a wide variety. So like when I read that there was multiple, I went, okay, well that might explain some of the different happenings going on, is that perhaps there was different spirits doing different things.
I wonder if they had just a little quick little meeting before they did their little paranormal activities. Be like, all right, what do you guys got to have for tonight? All right, well, I'm going to write something on the fucking wall and scare the shit out of her. Do it. Okay, boys, that was a little bit too fucked up. Scared. What do you think about throwing some potatoes tomorrow?
Yeah.
You guys game? Didn't work?
Peter's like, how about we shank her in the back? Yeah. Let's stab her. That'll be fun.
That's probably the same guy that's like, let's fucking burn her house down.
Burn the house down. Everyone's like, whoa, Pete.
Yeah. I think Bob Nickel ghost was apparently the primary instigator. Yeah. That was the one that was
Bob.
Bab. Come
Bobby,
on, Bab.
Bob. Chill out, Bob.
Babby.
Chill out, Bobs.
Bab.
Now, June 11th, 1879, after she had returned from her kind of tour of New Brunswick, enterprising American actor named Walter Hubble. Who apparently
telescope
had just finished a theatrical tour in Newfoundland, and he kind of posited himself.
Tuckadirt's coming for you, bye.
Oh, that's funny. Say it one more time, Dan.
That's good. That's rich.
Newfoundland.
Yeah.
Newfoundland.
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 Yeah, I knew we'd get you slipping one of these days, and there it is.
Finally.
You thought it was easy pronunciation. Little did you know, it's not pronounced how it looks or sounds.
Sure. Newfoundland.
Newfoundland.
Fantastic. You have Walter Hubble who comes in, and Walter Hubble is a professional American actor, and he comes up there after finishing a tour with a theater company.
I tried to look up his IMDb, nothing. So this is questionable.
Okay, yeah, I'm not sure if they had actors from 1890s on the IMDb. I don't think they had IMDb back then.
Then what kind of professional is he?
Never heard of him.
So Mr. Hubble posits himself, like most of the, a number of the actual accounts and the most detailed account that we have of the Amherst mystery is from Hubble. Hubble coming there specifically, he had been written to by Mr. White when Esther was staying with him and his family about this power. This is what these events that have been going on. And Hubble posits and positions himself as a type of kind of early paranormal investigator. You could probably, put him as that. We'll probably talk about it at some point, but this is, late 1800s, early 1900s. This is the really big time of spiritualism. Like this is the really big rise of spiritualism, like spiritual mediums, necromancy, all of that kind of crystal balls, all of that kind of stuff going on. This is when all of that stuff is very in vogue at that time. And Hubble has a very personal kind of, as he writes it, he had a very personal connection with this kind of thing that got him started. He had a female friend who he had been acting with, and her mother apparently had died or committed suicide. And so, which had severely affected her, and the death had driven her almost to a type of mania at this point. And so he kind of caught her going to a number of people who claim to be psychics, claim to be mediums, allowing her to communicate with her dead family member. And so, he felt bad because he knew, or when he asked to come with her to some of these, and he's like, some of these people, and most of these people that you're talking to are frauds. He cites his long career in acting. And so being allowed him to be familiar with a lot of the techniques for, special effects of the day. Stagecraft, these kinds of things, creating noises, all of this kind of stuff. And he pointed some of these things out to his friend about being like, some of these people are charlatans. They are taking your money and they're doing whatever, and they're manipulating you. And, he claims that he kind of brought her back from where she was, like in a very bad place mentally, and brought her back, having her being able to more deal, more healthy, a healthier way to deal with
Esther. You team up with me, and by the time we're done, we're both going to have IMDb pages. Yeah. All right. We're going straight to the top.
Yes. With you at my side, I can retake Hollywood.
So Hubble essentially,
we're going to be huge in Newfoundland.
He falls into this paranormal investigator role, and he sees Esther as a very case of being like, this is very interesting. Perhaps, he claims he went in as a skeptic, and he goes in and he says that there's no way that this could be happening, and I could bust this. Like, he had somebody writing to him, Mr. White, being like, you know what, if I go in there and I can bust this. So over the course of 6 weeks, Hubble went and stayed with the Teeds, and he documented the strange displays that went on within their household. Now, one of the notes that he did make that was funny is that the ghosts seem to be very restrained and not seem to make themselves known on the Sabbath. So every Sunday they'd stop doing whatever they were doing. Because ghosts respect Sundays.
Yeah.
And there's no bowling on Shabbos.
Yeah,
so
they know.
Saturday's out.
I don't fucking spook on Shabbos.
And so Hubble goes in there and he sees all this and he judges it to be genuine, that this is happening. In his experience, he feels like what is going on is actually occurring and that this is something that needs to be presented to the public. And so with Hubble's help, Esther embarks on a speaking tour. He takes her on a speaking tour. They would charge audiences to come and see her and tell her story. Unfortunately, they do about like 2 acts, and each one is met with a measured amount of hostility. Like he talks about in his book, he wrote an entire book about this, which I read for the researching this. And it was like the first one they go to immediately, like she starts telling her story and they have some like old codger like stand up and was like shaking his cane, like denouncing hissing her and saying like, "Boo! What the hell is this?
Do something, do something. Show us the stab wound."
And according to Hubble, like he even made a kind of arrangement with the ghosts using their communication method and being like they would appear, like he being like, "Okay, you guys will appear and do the stuff that you do on the stage."
So they got stage fright, is what you're saying?
And yeah, so they pretty much got heckled out of town. Like they were just like, there's no way that this is going to work.
From some of the reports I read, there was like a riot at one of the shows.
Yeah, they were
like, okay, well, we can't continue. Like we're going to get murdered. We need to leave.
Yeah, they had to walk out of there. I think he had to pretty much like walk her through a pretty angry mob.
Yeah.
Oh, about all the cabbage and tomatoes and shit.
Potatoes.
Getting hucked. Oh, she's getting potato PTSD again. The flashbacks.
So Esther ended up returning to Amherst and working for a man named Arthur Davidson. But after working with him for a while, his barn actually burned down. And he accused her of arson because it was known around town that these ghosts had perhaps in this. But he, accused her of arson. And when they went to court, she actually got convicted and sentenced to 4 months in prison. Fortunately for her,
they did a month.
Fortunately, it was in Canada,
month, right?
and even in the 1800s, Canada was lenient on crime.
Hey, Esther, are you sorry?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
All right,
let her out.
All right,
let her go.
Let her go.
She only did 1 month in prison, but after this, the phenomenon that had plagued her for a year almost is gradually ceased. And none of this stuff happened ever again.
Do a little hard time and that shit fucks off, eh?
Oh, in 1 month, that's Fed time in Canada.
Hey, that's fucking hard time, pal.
Hard time.
I know guys did less for murder.
Yeah.
I mean, so by all accounts, after that, Esther, lived a very mundane life. She ended up marrying twice. She had a son by each of the husbands. She ended up moving to Brockton, Massachusetts with her second husband, and then ended up dying at the age of 52 on November 8th, 1912.
Ben, I think we got to revisit a little something that happened prior to all this, though, don't we?
I think so, perhaps. So
perhaps.
There is a bit of debate about what possibly either triggered this or something that is to be critical of this entire event. Now, August 28th, shortly, a month, or a couple weeks before the occurrences or the display of the power began, a young man named Bob McNeil,
a gentleman suitor,
mustachioed gentleman.
Yes, he is, actually. Yes, I think he is described as having a mustache. He was actually a co-worker of Daniel Teed. He was a subordinate, and he had seemed to take a fancy to Esther, who, by all accounts, was pretty much she was an attractive girl. She wasn't like a homely or anything like that. She was rather attractive for
No, I saw her picture for 1800s. I mean, come on.
Damn. And just to be 100% clear, this is like just a little bit before any incident, the box incident. This is a month before.
Right. This hadn't happened before any of this stuff had happened.
Oh, can I interject really quick before this incident? Can I talk about the dream she had the night before this incident?
Sure.
Can I tell about this?
Yeah.
All right. So on the morning of August 28th, 1878, Esther tells her sister Jane and Olive about a bizarre dream she had. I dreamt that when I got up in the morning, everything and everybody was changed but myself. This cottage was green instead of yellow. You, Dan, Jane, Brother William, and the rest of the family all had heads of bears, and you all growled at me. But you could talk, and eyes that were as large as horses' eyes, but as red as blood. While we were talking, I could hear strange noises coming from the street. So I approached the door, and when I opened the door, I saw hundreds of black bulls with blue eyes, very blue eyes, coming towards the house, with blood dripping from their mouths and feet, and fire come out of the ground. They came roaring very loudly from the house. I shut and locked the door as fast as I could, closed all the windows, and ran to lock the back door. All of a sudden, they began to ram the house so violently that it nearly knocked the house over. It shook so violently that I awoke falling up out of bed. It's a fucking weird dream.
It was a weird dream.
It was a fucked up dream.
It was a fucking weird
dream. And then,
dream.
Followed by that weird dream, she has quite an extreme experience that evening with Bob McNeil. Now, Bob McNeil had invited Esther to take a ride with him in his carriage. So on their way back to what Esther assumed back to her home, he ended up taking an alternate route, which took them near a kind of isolated grove in the area. And then after halting the carriage, he jumped down from his seat and he drew a revolver and pointed it directly at Esther and demanded that she exit the carriage. Told her to get out.
When I saw this, I'm like, this is one ballsy move because you're in a village of 300 or however many, not very many people. Everyone knows that you fancy this lass and you're going to take her in your carriage. You're going to pick her up from her house and you're going to now pull a fucking gun on her. Be like, get out.
Well, from what I was reading, I read a little bit more detail that he was making advances at her and she was kind of brushing them off, being like, no, I'm not interested. And kind of just, it affected his manhood and he fucking got mad and freaked out. And that's when he pulled the gun out being like, you're not going to reject me.
Right. He wanted to get to second base, and second base being back then wanted to, show some ankle. And she didn't want to show some ankle. She's like, you can touch my shoulder.
Let me see them bedclothes, baby.
She's like, you can touch my shoulder. He's like, hey, fuck that shit.
Yeah.
So he jumped out of the carriage,
ankle.
Pointed the revolver directly at her chest. And to Esther's credit, she didn't give a shit, apparently. Like, she didn't get out of the thing. She thought, she was like, get back in the carriage.
Yeah, get back in the carriage.
By her account, she's like, just get back in the carriage.
She's hard, man.
Back then,
I would be sobbing while I showed both ankles instantly.
Yeah,
I would have been already on my knees.
And she doesn't give a shit. But fortunately for her, it doesn't get much farther than that. Which is already pretty too far. But Bob ends up getting alarmed by another passing carriage and quickly gets back into the carriage and then drives Esther home in the rain. Begins to rain at that point, so uncovered. So she gets home and she's soaking wet and ended up just going to her room and apparently just crying herself to sleep.
Yeah, she's very distraught after that. And then old Bobby McNeil, piece of shit, never seen again.
Yeah.
Well,
which is like, that is so crazy that is crazy. Like Braden kind of mentions that it kind of drives it home, but it's like, that's fucking crazy. You just pulled a gun on a lady and you're just like, oh, never hear of him again.
Well, have a good night.
Well, and you got to think there's a little bit of I'm not going to say vigilante justice and stuff, but I'm sure there was where it's like that gets known around town. Like all of a sudden you aren't welcome around, you know what I mean? And it's like, yeah, there's authorities and stuff, but I'm sure there's, people that would take that kind of thing not too lightly in this kind of time. And
well, I'm not even sure about that because I was looking, reading up on it. It's like the family, like Daniel and the other Coxes, pretty much like they felt like it was like some kind of lover's spat. Like I don't even think they fully believed her.
Like, this kind of shit happens all the time.
Yeah.
No, they didn't know. They didn't know that he pulled a gun on her though. They just know that they stopped seeing each other.
Right.
Like they had no idea about that incident.
Oh, they didn't know about the gun. Okay,
yeah.
so.
They didn't know about the gun. They just assumed, okay, she's upset.
Right.
We haven't seen old Bobby boy in a fucking while.
But that makes sense because he's probably worried that like, hey, if she told everyone I pulled a gun, I could be in some trouble. It's best that I head down to the next village down and try my hand there at a
other less populated Canadian wilderness town.
Head over to the Bay of Fundy and try my luck.
Yeah. So, this, from my reading is like some people attributed that a lot of this stuff to her trauma from this event, but from her account herself, like for someone to be that, like to just have a gun pointed at you and be like, no, fuck you. Yeah. Like afterwards, I'm sure once the adrenaline kicked, you were like upset, but like, by all accounts, it seems like she was such a fucking badass that I just don't see that.
There's tons of stuff about her being super morose after locking herself in her room, not really talking with family.
I mean, you had she's 14 years old, it's kind of like, yeah, but so Hubble and his experience, he kind of implies, or when in his book, he kind of talks about that perhaps he kind of tries to link it to the happenings. And he says that perhaps this Bob, the spirit of, they obviously seemingly violent Bob Nickel somehow possessed, or like a portion of the power ended up possessing, the man who assaulted Esther, Bob McNeil, and he links this to this experience that he has that he describes with Esther, where at one point they kind of like they were sitting down one day, and he said that he kind of joined hands with her, and he described the sensation of feeling like some kind of like electrical current was going through his body. And then after they broke contact, he remembers feeling very exhausted. He felt very drained, and he actually had to like sleep. He said he pretty much had to sleep for the rest of the day, and then crashed on the couch and didn't wake up until late in the evening. So he's saying that perhaps the power had something to do with this event, that this was an early display of what was to come.
All right. So, we know that since this event, Esther had been married, what? Once?
Twice.
Twice.
Had she been married?
Do we know why she'd been married twice?
Are you talking about before Bob McNeil?
I'm saying after Bob McNeil.
Well, after Bob McNeil. Okay. Yeah. She married twice. Yep.
We don't know what happened to her husbands.
Well, we don't.
Where did we get this story? Where did we get this story about Bob McNeil from? We got it from Esther. How do we know that Esther didn't fucking kill this guy and this is who's haunting her now?
That's a good point. Because Bob McNeil
Nickel is actually Bob McNeil. They did a typo on the Ouija board.
Well, here's the thing.
They read the fucking Knox wrong.
Yeah.
Listen.
Okay.
No, Esther's like, no, that's not McNeil. That's Nickel.
That's Nickel.
You guys heard that wrong.
And then
that's
later
Nickel.
on, when they're doing it without her, they get a McNeil, which is kind of strange. Right?
So, yeah.
No, seriously. Maybe she offed the guy. Maybe there was a struggle. Maybe she got the gun from him. Maybe she popped him.
I mean, she would have to drive.
Or maybe
her
she's a serial killer, and maybe she killed him and two of her husbands.
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
she's been getting away with it the whole time. Maybe she's the real bad guy of this, and fucking Bob McNeil's like fucking Swayze, just trying to get some fucking some revenge here.
I like that because it would to
You
me
like Swayze. You like Patrick Swayze.
I like Patrick
It's hot.
Swayze.
So hot and Dirty Dancing. And fucking Roadhouse.
I like that theory because that to me adds up to that like withdrawnness after. It's like I'm like the story of like he pulled a gun and I was like, yeah, well, get that piece out of my face. You ain't think no one's had a gun in my face before. Fucking
You ain't mad
badass.
enough.
And then all of a sudden after she's a shell of herself, I'm like, well, that doesn't really make sense. But what does add up to me is that if that's the case and she kills him, of like that guilt of like weighing you down of like, oh my God, I murdered someone and I'm keeping this secret to myself. Right. And then I like that because then this could be some sort of this could be her like, you know, losing it over that murder. I like that theory, Andrew. I never thought of that.
Listen, I'm sticking to strictly only spooky fucking final thoughts here. I'm not.
What's your final thought?
Yeah.
Let's go around the
that's
horn.
it?
That's it.
Murder? Yeah, murder. Yeah, I'm
Murder.
not going to talk about any of the stuff I think is super realistic. I'm going to talk about what I think it is, and I think it was murder.
Now, for me,
Murder spooky.
Spooky murder.
What I want to
Think of it. Your mind to kill. He gets revenge. You killed me, so I get to kill you.
yeah, your mind to kill.
Your mind to
It
kill.
adds up. It adds up quite nicely. It's actually making me rethink my thoughts because my thoughts were, you know, I go into when I start to see things like this, the fire setting and stuff like this. I initially go, if I just very quickly off the top of my head, I'm thinking some sort of mental illness. Like we didn't have mental illness back then. We didn't know a lot about it. And then it seemingly all stops when she pays a consequence. You know what I mean? Like she goes to jail and all of a sudden she's like, hey, maybe I shouldn't throw these matches. However, what throws a huge wrench in this for me is that all these afterdavids that are signed by everyone talking about the scratches appearing in the wall, the pillows getting yanked, right? Like it's corroborated by other people. So
It's not though. It's not.
Is this your final thoughts or my final thoughts?
Murder.
I'm sorry,
No,
but it's not.
it's
Yeah,
murder.
but it's not. Well,
murder.
if you got to use that, you got to dig something up that you can't throw holes
Fine.
through. You have no idea if
Murder.
she killed him or not. But thank you. Perfect.
It was murder. You know, it is a spooky case. I loved it. There's so many great YouTube videos of like old ass reenactment. There's an old one on Global News, Global Channel that does like some weird remake of it in some weird like history moment. It's a really, really interesting case. And there's lots of information behind it. So it is spooky. And a lot of the stuff that happens in it gives you that what you're looking for, that chill down the spine. When you read it, you're like, holy shit, this is terrifying. So it's 100% murder, 100% Bob McNeil coming back, poltergeisting,
Getting geisty.
throwing taters. That's my final thoughts. Dan, what do you think?
This one was really fun to research because it is a very singular firsthand account by Hubble. Like it is it is a single book, which by reports did pretty well when he sold it, when he published the actual book of the accounts, in which I think he actually rewrote the book and then it got reprinted like several times. And so it's a really fun read about the entire situation, but it pretty much, he is the only one reporting on this. And then he even goes as far as to reprint like old articles that they wrote about, like news articles from the local news outlets in the town of Amherst about what was going on, which are like short little blurbs. But it is just it is a fun case and it is fun to look into. And I suggest people to read the book. Like you can find it free online from like the Library of Congress. Like you can read it for free. And it is pretty fun because it was written in that very stilted, like Victorian English, which is always pretty fun. Like Victorian American English, which is always really fun to read because it's all, it makes everything sound really formal about talking about ghosts and shit. It is really fun. So there are still like the case itself does have some detractors, people who say that Perhaps most of this, again, we only have the single account. Pretty much most of the documentation comes from Hubble himself, who is an actor, but also known to be somewhat of an enterprising gentleman who is always kind of on the lookout for the next kind of thing. And so there is that kind of suspicion, and which kind of undermines the whole credibility of the case, to be like, perhaps he's just looking for a quick way to make some money. Put on a show, and that's all you really get. I mean, from him, it is a really, I like these cases personally, because you have this one person telling this very, from his point of view, like a very compelling story and all this stuff that's pretty nuts. I also hadn't really heard about it before, and even though it is like, this is apparently one of the cases that everybody kind of points to within the paranormal ghost circles of like very seemingly solid proof of poltergeist phenomenon, like very typical. This would be the archetypal poltergeist phenomenon. Like you have a pyromaniac ghost running around trying to set the house on fire,
communicating with ghosts through knocking. Like it's got it all.
It's cool.
Yeah, it's got so many. It's got so many parts to it, and it is. It's really fun to look at when you dig down deep into it, and some of the pieces, like some of the stuff doesn't exactly line up. You're like, wow,
there's some holes.
There's some holes. But it is fun. Like I enjoyed reading about it, and if people want to learn more, like just read the book that Hubble wrote, and it's a good ride.
Yeah.
So,
did we
100% murder?
A theory of the week.
We do have one.
We do have one.
I will keep stalling while I bring it up.
And Andrew has named the theory of the week, who has done a lot of work.
A lot of work. More work than any of us were willing to do.
Pretty hard effort.
Hard hours.
Right.
It's pretty funny because every single one of us has talked about doing this, and every single one of us flat out refused to do what this person did, just because the kindness of their heart.
Our theory of the week is Dylan Rader. What did Dylan Rader do?
The Lord's work is what he did.
The Lord, absolutely. He compiled a list of all the Mongoose files in each episode. Like, think about the fucking hours that would take.
It's quite impressive because there's a lot of them. He had a list, and the fact that he did it and posted it on Facebook for everyone, I downloaded it because I said, hey, if someone else does that, maybe I'll do something with them. Maybe I'll edit them together. Maybe I'll put them to some spooky music and make YouTube
Maybe
videos.
I'll do nothing to them.
Maybe I won't do a thing. Who knows?
Maybe I'll do something. Maybe I'll do
Time
nothing.
will tell.
No, Brandon will probably delete them all.
They're off.
Just putting his own stories.
Welcome to Braden's Files. No, it's actually unreal. I mean, it's a huge service to fans. They love the Mongoose stories, so it's nice to have someone that did that for everyone. That's outstanding.
I'd say so.
Now we get to this part of the show.
Everybody's favorite part of the show.
Yeah, let's see if I can.
Can you even do it?
I've got Zeltron playing.
Or does Dan have to sing it?
No, I've got Zeltron.
Make Dan sing it. Make Dan sing it.
I've got Zeltron playing in the background right now. First off, check out our YouTube channel. We got tons of stuff on there. I've seen people in the chat talking about, wanting us to do UFO reviews. Well, guess what? We already do them. Go check out our YouTube video. They're half an hour.
When does this come out?
Friday.
When does this come out?
Friday.
What's the date of Friday? Okay, so that's before the end of the month. Listen, throw us a fucking bone. I want to get to 800 so bad.
Yeah, we're 2 away.
We're so close. We've been so close for so long. I just need to see it. You can even donate and then just cancel the payment. I just want to see it 800.
Yeah, we're so close. So close. And these people are helping us get there. So big thank you to Dylan Rader.
That's the theory of the week.
Oh, what a G! Unbelievable.
Unless there's unless there are two Dylan Raiders, which would be nuts.
No.
Well, this guy's a fucking beauty.
I just think he's a G. Signs up for Patreon and does the legwork for this. Unbelievable. Chris from Denver. Deadbeat.
I like that too.
Germ Wolf. A 1-year pledge by Captain Specificity.
Specificity. Specificity.
Axel Salazar. Kyle. Leroy Harris. Manuel Alvarez. And Drillin' Phil. And as we always say at the end of these things, keep those eyes on the skies. Peace. See you in after hours.
Take control of your growing company's finances with Bill Spend and Expense, the free-to-use spend management software powered by the Bill Divvy Corporate Card. With credit lines from $50,000 to $5 million, Bill Spend and Expense is here to help you thrive. Say goodbye to manual expense reports and juggling multiple cards, and say hello to saving time and eliminating wasteful spend. Try Bill Spend and Expense today at bill.com/promo500 and get $500. Terms and conditions apply. Advertised credit ranges are not guaranteed and are determined at approval. Card issued by Cross River Bank. Member FDIC.
Man, that sunset is gorgeous.
Grill, patio, sunset. Hard to get better than that. Unless you're browsing Carvana's inventory while you soak it all in.
Oh, burger time.
So sit back, get comfortable. Carvana's got thousands of cars under $20,000 just waiting for you.
I could stay here forever.
Carvana, where car buying meets comfort meets convenience. Download the app or visit Carvana.com today.